to your attention, sorry. In my mind, as a leader who has been around, who's familiar with the modus operandi, even modus vivendi of our security agencies, which you have. You are the civilian face of the Homeland Security. When such a high profile, me, I'm persuaded it's abduction. And it can have two faces. When we have put all these efforts to project Kenya, to promote Kenya, locally, regionally, internationally, and even our forces are there in Haiti. Why is Haiti there in that state? Because of the effects of goonism and gangsters and everything else that the administration then failed to act on. Is it what is happening in Kenya right now? A step towards that direction. Because a leader has been abducted, a leader is missing, to use the police word. A leader cannot be accounted for, yet to date, other than the mere OP acknowledgement in Makadara police station, we are yet to see a high-level response from the security agencies. That compounds the challenge in this era, Waziri, of constitutional accountability, adherence to the rule of law and accountability. You have used the word constitutional accountability. By now, we expected that every day we'll be getting progress report. I do not want to downplay the comment that you have made, that you're making some progress and therefore you'll issue a comprehensive test, because we also understand that sometimes some of these things require a lot of delicate handling. But what compounds, Waziri, put yourself in the shoes of the voters of that elected representative, the family, the relatives, his representative who is talking to you. No statement, nothing, business as usual, nothing is happening. So Waziri, I want to give you lead questions, which you also understand. On 6 August, this particular state officer, leader, was summoned by the County Security Committee Wajir. For whatever reason, I learned this recently. And they have every right to interact with everybody. The same person, on 10th September, the entire Homeland Security heads were also in Wajir. On 11th September, the gentleman traveled to Nairobi. On 13th, he went missing. He was abducted. The venue, the location, it's as a result of our collective efforts that we have CCTVs everywhere. This honorable member called for the service of an Uber driver. He has made a statement, he has made an affirmation, on, under, off, which I also tabled through the chairman before the House. So Waziri, and I know you are a lawyer, an astute lawyer, criminal responsibility is individual. I do not want to delve into that. But equally, we must also be accountable to the due process of law. That due process of law is what we are questioning. I want to plead with you. And I will say this without fear, without favor, without any contradiction, without an iota of doubt. And you know I'm an old, seasoned, experienced legislator and I've been around. If this particular leader has committed any crime, he's supposed to be before a court of law, not in detention, not in the name of abduction. What you have done, the achievements that you have made over the last 2 years as the substantive CS internal security, for those of us who have been around, is commendable. But some of these silly actions, you can call them rowdy officers, overzealous officers, you can call them of lack of whatever name that you call them, completely destroys that that big image that you have been trying to build. And I am also alive to the sensitivity and the challenge that sometimes you go through. So I want to plead with you as we wait for that comprehensive response. If it was in other jurisdictions, you know it. By now, an elected missing, some people will have taken responsibility, personal responsibility. It has two aspects. Assume even in the worst case scenario, which is not in this case, that he has been abducted by criminal elements. Do you want to say that Kenya is a banana republic? Why are these criminal elements who have been abducting people, and so many people have been released, why are they not being taken into court? Waziri, you understand this. Me and you have gone to the same university. You understand this. That is not one of the tenets that we have been taught. It is not. It's completely outside that. Can this, you know, by now I think you are familiar with our culture. I have the entire community in Nairobi. So you can also imagine the burden, the entire community, because their leader is missing. I have to recharge my telephones every second, every minute, because of the calls. I have nothing to say. In fact, the assumption is, because I'm an experienced legislator and I've been around, I can talk to all of you and say, yes, I've talked to all of you. Everybody's in denial. What message will I say? So I want to plead with you. Whoever is holding this guy, and they know where they are, and please, wherever you are, you know yourselves. Release this MCL.
That's okay, we should work it out. Yeah, but
release this MCL. If you have evidence enough that can warrant him, just like we have alluded, because all of us are accountable to the rule of law. That's what separates us. Take him to court. Thank you, Wazir.
Okay, kindly members, I want to guide us this. I think the CS had actually asked that we give time to give more updated and comprehensive response, latest. I appreciate the reasons and the ground why, of course, you need to say something, but maybe just to reinforce or the plea and what the Mheshimiwa Kenan is saying, I will give the two members briefly just to say something to the CS.
Thank you, Chair.
I understand.
Yes, and it's only fair that you give us a few minutes, Chair, and I appreciate that. Waziri, today, honestly, I'm not in the mood. Not just because I want it, because an MCA, an elected leader from my county, has been missing for the past 15 days. Today being 16th day. You mentioned you are not aware of the case. There's a communication from your office that we got through the chair on 24th that indeed the matter is under investigation. It's now 2 days since we got that investigation. And as a professor of law, the whole time you've been educating us on law, on how to safeguard the Constitution. From where I sit, I feel like we are applying the law, or we are implementing the Constitution selectively. When an elected leader is missing for the 16th day, don't you think he has all the rights to live? Don't you think as an elected member of parliament, he needs to be, he needs to be implementing and, doing the work he was elected for? That is something as a lawyer I want to understand. Two, Bwana Waziri, you said you don't want us to do abductions. Without an iota of doubt, I want to categorically say the government of Kenya is abducting the citizens of this country. Why I say that?
Kindly, you can only say that if you can substitute that.
I'm going there, Chair.
Kindly, you know the procedures.
Okay.
So withdraw that one, and you are very smart in this letter.
As I withdraw, Chair, let me just finish the statement. I say that because this honorable member, Mr. Waziri, got a summon from the security agencies. 2 days later, he's abducted. Any person who thinks will add, the tabulations that indeed it's the security agencies. If indeed it's not the security agencies. Mr. Waziri, how hard is it for the security agencies to come and say we don't have this gentleman, Mr. Waziri? My other question is, if an elected member of parliament can be abducted, how safe are we as the citizens? Personally, because of the things I've been doing and going through the meetings in search of the honorable member, I feel threatened, to be honest. I don't know whether I'm safe as an elected member of parliament because of the things and the meetings we go. Honorable Kenan mentioned how my community works. The entire county is in Nairobi. It's expensive for us to maintain them. We don't sleep in our houses, Mr. Waziri. We are running from one place to another. At one point, if I take you to my house, more than 50 people are in the house because of the elected member. Mr. Waziri, I feel very, miserable that the people who elected me right now, who feel I can bring the elected MCA by just advocating and talking in parliament, that nothing can be heard, nothing can be done. Mr. Waziri, to be honest, I feel like we are in a failed state. When you take an elected member, he's a human being, he can do anything. Why do we have the courts? Why do we have the Constitution? You're a professor of law, Mr. Waziri. We are not happy from where we sit, even as a country, from Wajir, Mr. Waziri. Waziri, lastly, you said you initially started by condoning the extrajudicial killing and abductions. We want, when you say something, we mean it as a country. At the end of the day, the people we elected us are the people we work for. We will not support if they have done something wrong, Waziri. The entire Wajir country, from all the 6 constituencies today, are all out in demonstrating in the streets of Wajir, besides the government refusing to give them permit. We will not allow, Mr. Waziri. We will not allow our elected members to be disappearing. Then there's no need of us being elected in the first place. We rather stay home. We rather have a lawless country, Mr. Waziri. Okay. You are the Waziri I respect. I have a lot of regards for you. We want our honorable member back. We want our son back. We are not asking for much. He is in the hands of the security agencies. I don't know how to put more than that.
Thank you, Honorable Fatuma. I think you've been heard very well and clear. Vice Chair, Defense.
Thank you.
Henry, maybe try
Chairman,
to...
I left a meeting of Defense, and we adjourned that meeting, so Waziri will not be meeting us. We are adjourned for another day. Waziri, I want to echo my colleagues, Honorable Kenan and Honorable Fatuma, on this matter. Really, it's a painful situation as it is. When we talk about the police, where say we are not aware of this MCA, then it comes to our mind, do we have a gang that can really abduct an elected leader for 16 days and the police are not really aware? And Honorable Kenan actually mentioned that, look, we are supporting Haiti on matters of dealing with gangs, and yet here we have a leader that is being abducted, and we don't know where it is. And from where I sit, I know what is happening is that he is under the security agencies. The only thing is that because you are a professor of law, and 24 hours has passed, now the issue of saying how do we hold him for this number of days is also coming up. In my place, in my concert quarters, Ramo, there was a demonstration because his siblings and his parents come from my place, even though they represent somewhere in Wajir. We are ready to forgive the school agencies for holding him for all this number of days. Please let him be released. It's unfortunate. when I looked at the statement yesterday and I contributed in the House and I said, this is a shallow statement, just because you are not aware of the statement yourself. It didn't come through you. I look at the statements of the other responses. It's signed by Professor Kindiki. The other one, the one for the MCA Dela, is not signed by Professor Kindiki, and it's true you are not aware. That shows that we are not putting efforts about this MCA. Here we are talking about insecurity, cattle rustling, ABCD. We have a leader who is missing for 16 days. My plea is that let us release this MCA. Whether by abducted by whoever, it doesn't matter. The Kenyan security agencies have capacity to find out where he is, whether by themselves or by other gangs. So my plea, I repeat, is that let us find where the MCA is. I know there's an issue of 24 hours has lapsed. We have held him for all this number of days. There's issue of all these things are coming up, I know. But what I'm trying to tell you is that he is being held. I've been in the security industry myself. I worked with Camaraso. And we have done some operations even before. We know. Let them release this MCA. Later, they can decide to take him to court or so. It doesn't matter. But the family is at pains. So mine is just to input that comment, and please take it serious. Even as you say that you want to do a statement later, let the statement come later, release him. You know where he is.
Okay, thank you. That is okay, Bashir. Lastly,
thank you, Chairman. I just want to be very brief, Waziri. In the last administration, two of my constituents are still missing. They were elders from Boran and Gabra communities. And their families are going through very painful experience. Coming from a security background, I personally feel the issues of abduction to enforce the law or extrajudicial killing will not help Kenya to maintain peace and harmony. It is a very weak system because it undermines intelligence, it undermines information. There are so many things it undermines. And I think the best thing to happen, if anybody is seen to be breaking the law, they must have their day in court. The intelligence system, investigative agencies must cobble together as much information as possible so that people like leaders, let them be arrested in a decent manner. But I think what is slowly happening, if in case this particular individual is being held by the security agencies, it's a very weak form of enforcing the law. And I think we, as administration under President Ruto, many of us who are in that administration and supporting it, I think we would not wish to go that route. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. To access State House and take it over unconstitutionally. So that is the context in which I respond to this statement, Mr. Chair. In the process of those unprecedented demonstrations, acts of violence and extensive destruction of public property and private property, I have been asked to say how many people were arrested during that period. 1,208. Number two, I've been asked to state during those June, July riots, how many people lost their lives? 42. Thirdly, I have been asked to give an account of any unaccounted or unidentified bodies which could be in public mortuaries arising out of those unprecedented events of June and July 2024. 2. The number is 2. And finally, I have been asked to inform this committee, and by extension Parliament, how many people were reported missing during the June, July violent riots across the country. 132. And therefore, other than those statistics, the second part of that request for statement by the member for Ugenya was to, I think more or less I've answered everything, but I think there is one part there which says, actually I've answered everything. Part 1 to 4, I submit.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Obviously, the statements is extremely underwhelming. Does not even attempt to answer all the questions asked. Honorable Chair, if you look at number 2 of the statement, first of all, in fact, it was a list of the names of those who lost their lives during the demonstrations across the country. The good Chair, good Waziri, has simply given us statistics. These statistics is not stones, they are human beings. If you know the number, ought surely to know the names of these people who lost their lives. Number 2, Honorable Speaker, it is again unfair for the minister to indicate the government has got no policy of abduction and false disappearances. It has been common knowledge because these 132 members who are missing, where are they? They can't just miss out, cannot just disappear in thin air, and yet this is a country of Kenya. We have extensive security network in this country. Where are these people and who are they? They must have been reported. Whoever reported must have indicated who their names are, their ID numbers, and any form of identification. It will do good for this country, Honorable Speaker, Chair, if the Cabinet Secretary could be forthright and give us information, because I'm sure this is not classified information. Those who have died have been buried. Those who are missing have been reported and they are in the OB. It's not, it's not state secret. Probably if he answers that, you'll allow me to answer to request further questions, Chair.
Anybody with a follow-up question to regarding the same? If none, we'll let the minister.
Honorable Chair, I, to some extent, agree with the member on the adequacy of that response. And you will notice, Honorable Chair, that yesterday I had, my office had forwarded a statement which we asked to amend by the current statement that we submitted this morning. And the reason for that adjustment is as follows, that as I have said, the number of those who died is 42. But that statement had identified up to 30 of the deceased. So what I asked the police to do, I think it was just like, because the information is there, it has always been there. These numbers and who died where, in what circumstances, the context in which they died, some by bullet, others by mob, etc. That information is there. So I discovered that the information given was up to case number 30. So I asked them to update the other 12 because death is a legal consequence. And therefore, what I will be pleading with this committee is to be given 24 hours. You already have the statement that has up to 30 of the deceased. The other 12 could be provided as supplementary information in 24 hours. As I have said many times, the government of Kenya has nothing to hide. If a Kenyan died, we cannot hide the fact that a Kenyan has died. What we need to do is to find out the circumstances under which the Kenyan died and ensure that if there is culpability or culpability by any person, including a security official or a law enforcement agency, justice is served, because the law does not allow death outside what is permitted in law. To that extent, I agree the incompleteness of that response, and I beg for 24 hours to again supplement with a more detailed information that includes the last 12 of the cases that were not included in the list which I had forwarded already to the committee yesterday. Secondly, the member has talked about the policy. He believes that government has a policy on abductions, and I disagree with the member with a lot of respect. It is not true, because policy has to be stated, it has to be articulated. Policy cannot be, it's not nebulous, it's not abstract. I, as the minister who is responsible, and including the president himself, have made it clear in public, in private, in all forums, that this administration does not condone abductions or extrajudicial killings or enforced disappearances. So it is unfair to visit a policy of extrajudicial killings on government unless we are provided with the evidence of policy pronouncement, policy articulation that supports this kind of unlawful behavior. And going forward, I think the challenge we have, Chair, as a country, is just to make sure that anybody who breaks the law, even if they are law enforcement people, they are brought to account. And I think in the spirit of the national, the police and other security sector reforms which we have initiated, I want to promise Kenya that we will rein in on any excesses by law enforcement officials to use weapons that are bought with the taxes of the people of Kenya outside the law, to harm the people of Kenya, to kill the people of Kenya, or even to arrest them in a manner that is inconsistent with the Constitution. In a nutshell, this government, and I say without fear of contradiction, does not condone extrajudicial killings, does not condone abductions by any person, whether a criminal or a law enforcement agency. Lastly, the member has asked about the missing persons. Again, the supplementary list will contain the OB number and the people who are reported missing per county. I think Nairobi has the highest. Nyandarua, I think, was the highest. Nyandarua had 13 cases reported. But what I want to inform the committee chair through you is that it is not scientifically correct to say that when someone is reported missing, they have been abducted. It is also not scientific to say that if a missing person report has been made, that that person has been abducted because they were participating in a demonstration. We have had a problem in this country for the last so many years of persons who are reported missing. Some of them have been traced eventually after months, others after weeks, others after years, others have never been found. And therefore, while we got some missing person reports from actually across the country, incidentally including some of the parts of the country where the demonstrations were not violent or were not even present. And that breakdown per county is provided. And therefore, with the great respect to the committee, I want to submit, Chair, that again, just like the cases of the deceased people, those who died, though those who are reported missing, we continually to look for them, to trace them, and we are appealing for information that can help us trace them. And it is the business of the police to make sure that the country is safe and people are protected from criminals, and it cannot be the policy of this government to support any harm on any Kenyan for politics or for whatever reason, because that would violate our constitution. I submit.
Finally, Chair, just on the same issue, Waziri, a number of these people who were killed, the 42 according to your record, even though normal media and through ISK and other LSK and other organizations say the number is much, much higher. Actually, yesterday in the news, they talked about 61 cases, and several numbers are still missing up to now. You have admitted quite a number of these so-called people who were killed by bullets. And obviously, those are police bullets. And obviously, you must have a traceability mechanism to know who was assigned what gun, what kind of ammunition was assigned. Is it possible to trace and follow up and know exactly which police officer shot any particular member of these 42 who have died? And that being the case, having been killed, as we have clearly said, weapons bought by the people of Kenya, what measures have you put in place to ensure the bereaved families, the families who lost loved ones, their breadwinners, their hopes in life, what measures has the government put in place to compensate, even assuage or relieve their pain? What measures has the government put in place? Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I would like to respond to the further intervention by the honorable member as follows. That I have not admitted that any Kenyan was killed by the police. What I said is that some died because of bullet wounds. The process of proving the owner of the gun that discharged a killer bullet is a forensic process. And I am not ruling out the possibility that a police officer may have used their firearms outside the law. But just 2 comments there, Chair, which I honestly believe are in the best interest of the country for me to say at a time like this one, when we are grappling with serious balances. On one hand, we have a country to keep safe from crime, and on the other hand, we have also a country that has a constitution that gives wide-ranging liberties, including civil liberties. I want to say these 2 things. That firstly, Chair, police are allowed to use lethal force. Let's start from there. Police are allowed to use lethal force to kill, depending on the circumstances. There are parameters. Those firearms are supposed to neutralize dangerous criminals who pose danger either to the life of a police officer themselves or to the lives of the people. And I think that's a general principle. I am not trying to say that any of these cases fitted there. I'm just saying that the law allows the police to use lethal force. The question that the pursuit of justice must help us to answer is whether, if there is any police officer who used their weapon, whether that use was within the parameters permitted under the law. If they were not within the parameters, then that police officer must be held accountable. And I know I have been briefed, IPOA is already at an advanced stage of doing that investigations. It requires forensic statement. Lives were lost in that country, but they have never discussed that matter. No media, no person has discussed the lives that were lost on Capitol Hill to protect the American democracy. So that contextualization is extremely important. And Chair, I will not pretend, as the country's security minister, I hold the very strong view that for this country to remain sustainable and for our democracy to function, we must, within the Constitution, make sure that the institutions established under our Constitution are protected, because if we overthrow constitutional institutions like parliament, judiciary, the executive, we have no country. The things we are discussing here, we will not have even this discussion where a parliamentary committee is grilling the security minister, because the country will not be there in the first place. So that is the first contextual matter I wanted to bring. And it is not true to argue or to submit that the police officer cannot use force. If we never applied force on that fateful day in Parliament, we will be talking about a different Kenya, a different scenario. The second and last issue, Honorable Chair, through you, is on the fact that somebody has been shot is not conclusive evidence that they have been shot by a police officer. It's not conclusive. Maybe there's a presumption that that bullet is the bullet of a police officer, but as a person who has practiced law for a quarter of a century, I can say this without fear of contradiction. The fact that somebody has died through a bullet where police officers were trying to control a crowd is not conclusive proof that that person has been killed by a police officer. And that's why the justice systems must help us establish the truth without shielding anybody. If a police officer went outside the law, they must be held accountable. To demonstrate my point, Rongai. In Rongai, we lost, to my mind, I think 2 people. And others were injured. What happened is that criminals invaded somebody's supermarket and started hurting people, and some were stabbed, workers, shoppers, etc. 2 police officers were guarding Equity Bank next to the supermarket. And they were armed. And the law allows a police officer to enforce the law, not necessarily where you are on duty that day, but if you realize there is breakdown of law and order, it is the duty of the police to protect the public. So these 2 officers tried to contain that invasion of that supermarket and the injury that was being visited on shoppers and so forth. They were only 2, but the crowd was massive. What happened is the criminals actually overpowered them. They took the gun, and one of them, they took the 2 guns, and one of the person who overpowered them actually started shooting at the crowd. So in the process I would assume of an investigation, it is possible that perhaps these officers, as they try to contain this situation, could have shot somebody. That is one hypothesis. But the other hypothesis is that the criminal who overpowered these officers actually and removed their uniform and started shooting at the crowd could have used a police gun, but the criminal to kill someone. And of course, these are things that require scientific proof. So the presumption could be it is the police officer, but it could be rebuttable by evidence. And that's why we need to be careful and not condemn law enforcement officers wholesale, but we must condemn individual law enforcement officers who use weapons outside the law. And the only sure way of ascertaining that is through the processes of justice, which are slow and painful, but eventually they lead us to the truth.
You're done, Waziri?
Yes, Chair, I submit.
Yeah.
And in some of the riots, there were private people with firearms. In some cases where we had huge crowds, there were people with firearms inside crowds. So I'm not just defending my officers. I'm also saying they need to be given the benefit of doubt, and otherwise we will lose the morale of our security agencies. And next time there's an attack, they'll say, okay, there's an attack, Parliament, sort out yourselves. God forbid. I submit.
Members were aware that, of course, we have got quite a number of the rest of the 6 of the question. I think we can leave at that, and I think the minister has taken undertaking to furnish this committee with the total number of Kenyans who were added to the list of 30. So you had asked for 24 hours?
Reply by tomorrow such a time, by tomorrow noon.
Thank you so much. Of course, the document will also be the document of the House, and it will be tabled in Parliament. Thank you so much, our brother Window, and a lot of regards from the member who did ask the question, actually, Ocheng. He said he was your student. Sometime confided to me.
I hope I did a good job.
Yeah, seemingly yes. Yeah, actually dropped a lot of accolade. Now, kindly go to the second question. We have got hardly 1 hour to tackle the rest of the 6.
Honorable Chair and honorable members, thank you. The second matter, as guided by the Chair, is the question on insecurity in Fafi constituency. And here I've been asked by the member for Fafi, the Honorable Yakub, to explain reasons why the government is downgrading security levels by discharging 16 National Police Reservists in Fafi, in Bura East sub-county, who are discharged on 6th August 2024. The second issue is that why 17 NPRs who are volunteered to support our security agencies who are dealing with counter-terrorism there have not been armed, yet they are ready to support the security formations there. Then what actions we are taking to enhance security in the constituency, and then also, finally, whether we have a record of abductions by Al-Shabaab or even by security agencies. I would like to respond as follows, that the issue of National Police Reservists is guided by the National Police Service Act. And it provides that the role of NPRs is to support the National Police Service as a reserve. And they can be assigned to support Kenya Police or Administration Police in all the areas that the police have mandate on. And this is preservation of peace, protection of life and property, prevention and detection of crime, apprehension of offenders, and enforcement of laws and regulations of our land. Now, the functions or the work of the National Police Service is to support the police, the full-time police deployment. But the Act also provides that NPRs must remain under the command and control of the police formation commanders. And this command has been delegated by the Inspector General of Police to the sub-county police commander, formerly known as OCPDs. They are the commanders of all the police in that sub-county, including NPRs. The Act also subjects NPRs to discipline, just like other police officers. And therefore, issues of command and control and discipline are of the NPRs is still with the Inspector General of Police, delegated to the sub-county police commanders. So the particular number of officers, NPR officers who were discharged, as the member correctly has pointed out, were discharged in exercise of the command, control, and discipline procedures of the National Police Service vested on the Inspector General. And they were replaced. In that sense, it takes me to the second part of the question. The second part of the question is saying there is already another 17 who wants to be NPRs. And why have they not been armed? And I want to respond as follows. It is not enough to volunteer that you want to be an NPR. That's not the end, it's the starting point, because the NPRs actually are voluntary support formation for the police. We just once in a while give them a small stipend, and we are trying to see how we make that a bit more determinate. But once there is need for NPRs, as is the case here in Fafi, there is a process of vetting. After vetting, training. After training, the arming, that is equipment, and then now they are deployed. So that process is ongoing. We have not refused to deploy, but we will need first to complete the vetting, do the training, which takes sometimes 4 or 5 weeks, and then after that they are armed, and then deployed. So we will be doing that shortly. And then thirdly, the member wanted to find out what we are doing in Fafi to strengthen the security there. And I want to accept that Ijara Fafi has really given us a lot of challenges in the last almost 1 year, maybe more, the last 3 years. We've had challenges, security challenges there, and our formations in the northeastern region are adjusting to make sure that we detect where the leakages are and where the gaps are. You know, we have a porous border. Up Mandera, we are trying our best to minimize incursions and cross-border threats. But down on the Garissa side, we have a challenge there. And right now, those two areas, Ijara, Fafi area, is problematic. So what we are doing, Chair, is we are increasing the presence of special forces, what we call formed up units, mainly the RDU, the Rapid Response Deployment Unit, the SOG, the Special Operations Group, and other elite special forces that help us to keep the country free from the threat of terror. We have challenges, and that's why as Security Committee we continually request you to support us with a security budget, because unlike normal or ordinary policing, the fight against terrorism and other organized crime like banditry requires very highly trained and highly equipped intelligence-based security deployments, quite expensive. And to train these special forces requires a lot of resources. And I'm glad we are making good progress. And I think even today we'll be receiving a little more from in the SOG, which is the most sophisticated and the most effective fighting force this country has, of very patriotic and sacrificial police officers who have given their all to protect us. So we intend, we have a small graduation, and members may want to know that we recruit about 2,000, but those who finish are 100. From 2,000, those who will finish the 6 months specialized training are 100 or thereabout. It's very rigorous. But then what that 100 does is equal to what 10,000 would do in ordinary circumstances. So, Fafi Ijara, I admit, we need to add a few more elite intelligence-led units which can help us address the current situation there. We have registered a lot of progress in Bonny Enclave for the last 18 months. And we hope eventually, even against the fight against banditry, where we are 75, 80% done, we are left with 20%. The solution will be in the special forces that will help us get these criminals who have hurt the people of Kenya for a long time. So we are working on that. And of course, we want to involve the communities. That is the last part of the answer. We want to work now with communities to build support for the fight against terror, so that it's not just security-led, government-led. We want to involve communities. NPRs is one entry point, but we want also broader support from elders, and I think we are working on a program between the relevant agencies, National Police Service, National Intelligence Service, and the rest of us. We are trying to work on a program for a more community participatory counter-terrorism. And we should be, this problem, we should get rid of it in a permanent manner if we continue with the current measures we are taking, I submit. We do not have, of course, every missing person, we have a record. And again, if we are asked to supply information, which we want asked this time, we can supply the people who's have been reported missing. But our forces do not abduct people, they should not abduct people, but they are highly trained on how to handle counter-terrorism, very sophisticated, very delicate, without harming innocent members of society, I submit.
Are you done, Waziri? Okay, the member for Fafi is here. He can go on record and maybe seek clarification from the minister before we open for the rest of members.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Salah Yakub Farah, Member of Parliament of Fafi constituency, Garissa County. Chair, with your indulgence, I really want my queries to be sort of interrogative, not one-off questions. And I want to congratulate first-hand the CS for being reappointed. I'm happy that he's back to the docket for continuity purpose. I'm not satisfied in the sense that the answers given by the CS were not to my expectations. I wanted numbers, I wanted figures, I needed some more clarifications. To start with, The CS said the 16 members were replaced. The CS said the 16 members were discharged as a result of discipline and the acts. I want to start by asking the CS, does the CS know where these 16 NPRs were located exactly or placed exactly in Bura East? Bura East has 2 divisions, Bura East Division and Galmagala Division. Can the CS tell me where exactly were they working? That's my first question, as interrogative sort of.
Honorable Chair, that was not part of the request. Deployment of NPRs is the work of the Inspector General. It's not the work of the Minister. The Minister directs the Inspector General on general policy issues, like some of which are being raised here. For example, an area requires NPR. You know, I could tell the IG, please, we need, this is the request, this is, can you now deploy? He deploys.
Thank you, CS. Thank you, CS.
Let me explain myself, because we are on record, because it's not a courtroom, so that we get this right. The issue of, for example, which NPR is posted where, that is the work of the IG, and it normally delegates that to the sub-county commander.
Thank you, CS. If I may help you, the 16 were working at the Galmagala Division. And that's why I told you I don't see the facts down there. And I asked a question of downscaling. I wanted the CS to give me more facts. I know it's a policy, but I wanted him to get facts from the IG. If I may help you, Bwana CS, the 16 were in Galmagala Division. The total number of NPRs in Galmagala were 21. 21 in number. Recruited 2013. On 6th August, 16 of them were let off. You say disciplinary. The letter of discharge doesn't say anything about that. It just said, we, referring to the letter of appointment, we have now discharged you. So I want an explicit answer telling me they were discharged on that. So do you have an explicit answer as to why they have been discharged? Was it discipline? Because that's a downscaling.
No, I don't have the answer. Maybe you can call the IG.
Sibara Waziri, as much as, of course, as clearly put, the CS not only advises or supervises the IG on matters policy, but considering that this is a question that was asked by the member in Parliament, I can understand he's trying to say that the IG is supposed to have furnished the CS with the answer. And when Waziri, knowing that, of course, Fafi is one of the most troubled constituencies areas in this country, I think it will have been just fair enough to really go down, get to know exactly what necessitated the discharge of this NPR, considering these are volunteers that in any way are not even probably having, putting a cost on the government, and they are doing a good job. And I'm sure by the time they were recruited, they may have gone through, or they must have gone through the vetting. So kindly, if probably the IG did not, we can still allow you to get more precise, accurate answer for the member, so that at least we can really get the answers he sought.
Point of order, Chair. Chair, in terms of parliamentary procedure, we ask the minister, the CS, to appear before the committee, because the CS is the overall, both in policy and supervision of a ministry. A departmental head can give that information to the CS. And I thought you should clarify, Chair, the point the honorable member was bringing up and the response from the CS that that is not his work, it should be asked to the IG. I think it is not in order. Maybe, Chair, you could clarify that so that additional information, if it's not available, the CS should be able to get from the officers.
I think I've given a direction. When CS, I think in due fairness, it should have been fair to
I
say
have no
that you have not
problem
been
getting
furnished.
the information
Yeah.
from the IG. I was just talking like a good student of constitutional law. Article 245 of the Constitution. Only two people can direct the IG. One is DPP on matters of investigation. The second one is the Interior Minister on matters of security policy. That is paragraph 3 and 4. Then 5 goes on to even say, notwithstanding these directives, no person may direct the Inspector General on the recruitment, assignment, promotion of any particular officer. So I just wanted to say that I have that constitutional contour to manage, but generally I have the information, I can get it. I have very good working relations with the IG and everybody else, and I don't think there's anything secretive about it. It's security information which is for the good of the people of Fafi. I can get it, maybe the timeline, Chair, if you give me the timeline so that I can comply.
Chair, if I can say something. First of all, I'm Rosa Kenyibuyu, Member of Parliament of Kisumu West Constituency. Chair, I think the response by the CS is arrogant. Arrogant and demeaning and dismissive. Really, if we wanted to ask the IG, we would have requested the IG to come here. But because he's in charge of that ministry, and a question had been given to him, we expected that he would get answers from his officers so that when he comes here, he gives a suitable answer. But to direct the Member of Parliament to go and call the IG, I think that's arrogant and not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe, Waziri, I think you are appearing before this committee, and the committee asking you question to do with internal security. Yes, you are not the IG, but you are the policy head of that institution called national security. I don't want to travel that side. The question I want to pursue is that of Ijara and Fafi. The reason why you give NPR is because there is gap in security, and the police are not enough to really do policing to protect lives and property. The fundamental question the Honorable Member should have asked, which I want to put to you, is there still need for NPR in those two constituencies where the problem of Al-Shabaab actually is current, it is also fluid, and it is existential, that some of these members are not able to travel freely in their constituencies just because of fearing for their own security. Maybe that is the line we want to pursue with you. Thank you, Chair.
Lastly, maybe you can.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, Bonasias, if in Fafi and Ijara and all other border towns, if there were 21 NPRs and you withdraw 16, meaning there are only 5 remaining, according to me, that is suicidal, extremely dangerous. What measures do you have to curb the insecurity and the problems that we have in those areas?
Chair.
Sarah, then Balosi, then we.
Chair, in regard with NPR, I think even as Waziri attempts to answer the question on disciplinary, I am a witness that NPR really helps in security. And I also don't dispute the fact that they should be vetted, trained, and equipped. But again, Waziri, they say justice delayed is justice denied. And in Swahili, they say ngoja ngoja umiza matumbo. So if at all they have to do all those processes,